I'm Phil Darst, and I want to welcome you to Cooking with Phil. If this is your first time here, I'm sure glad that you found us, and I hope you'll enjoy what we cooked today. And if you've been here before, I appreciate you coming back. I hope you told some of your friends about it so that they can enjoy what we do. Today, we've got something a little different, a curry again. That was one of the most popular dishes we've had, but this is totally different. This is a curry with lentils in it, and it's an Indian curry with Indian spices. So we'll get to that shortly. Excuse me, I got a kitten there bothering me. She's jealous. She's not able to do anything today. She was had me up at 4:30 this morning wanting to play, so she needs attention. She might be in the show today sometime. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to run you through the ingredients that we're going to put in our dish. I'll start out over here. I got a gigantic potato. This was over a pound. And a big onion, 1.5 pounds. And I've got a red pepper here that we like to put in it. And then I've got a few limes up here. I'm going to use one maybe, and if they're not too good, we'll possibly have to use two. So that's part of it. Now the next thing you're going to see is all the ingredients. And don't be worried if you don't have all the Indian spices I have. You can get them over time. We're going to cover them in detail. So in a jiffy, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to show you the ingredients that we're going to put in our dish today. Thank you for showing up again. Bye. I cooked down quite a bit. You won't be here to see all that. Well, here we are. Here's a pile of food we're going to put in there. I'm going to show you the vegetables first. This is a fresh bag of spinach, so we'll use a little bit of spinach in there. You've already seen the potato. You saw the gigantic onion. I get that at Detweiler's Market across the street. I've shown you that place before. There's a pepper that really needs eating. It's getting kind of wrinkly there. And I showed you the lime. Now that seems to be okay. We'll just need some zest and some juice out of this. And of course the basics that I almost always use are carrots and celery. That's always something we add. And then lentils. Now that's some good red lentils. There are brown ones. These seem to cook faster. And I'll give you a little bit more details of why lentils are good for you. If you're not eating them, you may want to consider it. Then the spices. Now here I've mixed up something that I use. This is a combination of ginger and garlic. I make a paste out of it. I mince it up very finely, put it in a blender with some olive oil and salt, and it makes a good addition to a lot of meals that I make. And then we'll get over here to the other spices. This is a cardamom pod. Now cardamom pods obviously have the cardamom powder in them that we've used in a few other recipes. We crunch them up or put them in a mortar and pestle along with cloves. Just doesn't take too many cloves, but that is a spice that's used quite a bit by Indian people, Indian chefs. And pepper, a few peppercorns. There's nothing to me that smells a lot better than a fresh ground peppercorn in my mortar and pestle. And of course we've got the usual sea salt. Now when I put it in a mortar and pestle, or use it with a mortar and pestle, I use it also for braising because it helps to powder up the other things we use. Then we start with some other cumin. This is a cumin seed, and we put that in early. We also use ground cumin later. Turmeric is something that's always used in Indian foods, I think, and it's very good for you in a lot of areas if you look it up and find some of the benefits. Cinnamon is another thing that we're going to put in there. Now, if you're just getting into Indian spices, the first thing probably that you might want to buy is garam masala, because garam masala has a lot of the different spices and ingredients in it. And also, it is something that not only do we put in the food, but you can season the food after it's come to the table, just like you'd use salt or pepper from a shaker. My granddaughter sends me this from North Carolina, Asheville to be exact. And then we always put an obligatory shake or two of cayenne pepper to make it hot. I'm not going to put regular peppers in it today. I have shown you my serranos before, but I won't be using them. And then I mentioned the Thai curry paste. Now, Thai curry paste is a little different than some of the other seasonings that you'll find, and I like to put it in a lot of dishes because it just has some special flavors you don't get anywhere else. The other thing that we use is tomato paste. I like tomato flavor. I think the dish is much better with tomato flavor, so we use a little bit of paste. Now, we've used chickpeas before, or chana as they call them in India, but this dish we're going to use some black-eyed peas. Black-eyed peas are really, as far as I know, American. They're used primarily in the South, but they have a lot of high protein in them, and they have a little different flavor than most other bean. They're actually a bean or a legume, and like our lentils, when they're served with a grain like rice or quinoa or something of that nature, they're going to give you a lot of protein. Then we have the fire roasted tomatoes. Now again, these are going to be diced. We'll put some of them in. When you see them put in there, you'll see a little bit of black that comes from the fire roasting, and of course that gives it a special taste. And then to really finish off a curry, I usually use coconut milk. And that we boil it in there along with water, and I think that gives it some extra flavor too. So it's special to a dish like this. They do use in India, and of course they use in Asia, where you're going to find a lot of other curries. So from here we're going to start cutting everything up and getting ready to put it in the pot. So I'll see you in a few minutes. Part we'll bring in later, but I needed to put in the tomato. Alright, we're at the stove. We're ready to start cooking. I had to get the big pot out today so we can get everything in there. First thing I'm going to do is put in a little bit of coconut oil. I use it off and on, along with olive oil and a few other oils, but that's my favorite. I don't use vegetable oils. Coconut oil seems to work a little bit better with some of the spices, and I don't think it adds the flavor that olive oil does, and I don't know that we need olive oil in an Indian dish, so that's the way we're going to do it today. Now the first thing we're going to do is put in cumin seeds. Now cumin seeds are going to give it a little flavor. What we need to do is put them in here. I better put a teaspoon in. And the oil will help them start popping. You can see them bubbling a little bit already. And that's going to coax a little bit of the flavor out of it to give us a good start. So we'll let that work for a minute or two. Now, while you were waiting on me, I put all the spices together here. I've got them measured out accurately, and I put them in the bottom. You'll see them in the recipe, so you don't have to watch me do that. The next thing I'm going to do, now that we got this working pretty good, I'm going to go in here and pull out a little bit of my favorite mixture here, which is the garlic. Whoops, and that's hot. And I put in a little extra there. That's garlic. And we use garlic in about everything else that we do, and of course we got some ginger in there too. So I'm going to start stirring this up just a little bit and get it flavor and everything up. Now while it's doing that, I've got my mortar and pestle here. I think I mentioned that first we're going to pop these cardamom seeds and get some of the good seasoning out of there, along with cloves. I've got cloves in there. I've got those fresh peppercorns in there. And, you know, I love the smell of those. I already mentioned that. The salt is the salt that we need in our recipe. And the other thing that it does, it gives this abrasion to help grind up everything that's grinding up down there. Now the cloves and all will eventually, they'll soften up quite a bit. And somebody's going to get a little surprise and some extra flavor out of those cumin pods. So I'm dumping them in there now. And let's stir them up a little bit. I'm just trying to keep it moving so we don't burn it. Remember, we got garlic in there and we don't like to burn garlic. Now, the other thing I've got mixed up here, I've got a can full of water and some bouillon. I'm just going to put a little bit in there to slow this down just a hair. And again, not burn the garlic. Let it bubble and boil, let it kind of add into the flavor. While we're doing that, I'm going to dump all the seasonings in there now. Sometimes people like to add the seasonings at the end, and quite often I do that, but in a dish like this, I like to put it up front. You can see the yellow, that's the turmeric in there. Now, I've got, as I told you, the tomato paste, and we like tomato flavor. So we're going to put in some tomato paste. That ought to be about a tablespoon, right? There's a tablespoon exactly. So we've got a tablespoon of that in there. Knock a little bit of this off. And I'm going to add a little bit more water to that now. Let that kind of get heated up and blended in and simmered. We're going to be putting vegetables in there pretty quickly. And you can see that looks pretty good to me, and I'm telling you, it smells delicious. It smells Indian. I do Indian because I like it. My granddaughters do, especially Karina, the oldest one. She loves Indian food. I mentioned in another video that we go out there on family birthdays. We just had hers recently, and I had a recipe of one of the sweet carrot dishes that we had, which is a combination. They say it's a dessert. I ate it like it was a side dish, and it was pretty good to me. Now, we've got most everything in there except the Thai red curry paste. And again, this is a little different because of some of the things that you'll find in there. Now, it's got lemongrass in it, and it's got some shallots and some coriander root and some kaffir lime peel, and pepper and garlic. So we've repeated some of the things we have, but we've also added a little bit more. Now I'm using actually the half teaspoon there. I filled it up abundantly, and I'm going to stir that in a little bit more so we get the flavors all blended together. And then we're going to add a little bit extra, and that's just about, would you say, a tablespoon? I think that's about right. So we've got that in there now, and we're stirring it up to simmer the flavors together and meld them, blend them, whatever you call them, but that adds to the taste. Now I'm ready to put all the water in, and what we want to do is bring this to a boil and start adding some vegetables. Now, I've got those seeds down there. I guess they're going to be okay. Somebody's going to get a surprise, but that's all right. That's good fiber, as I said. Now, I've also cut up everything in advance. I've got it measured out in a recipe. There's about a cup of everything in there. So let's put in the carrots first. Then we're going to put in the celery along with that. I didn't saute the onions. We could have done that, but I think in this case, since they're red onions, we don't need to saute them in there, so we're just going to boil them. And you notice they're cut up pretty heftily. And the red peppers we won't put in till later. So I'm getting all this in, and then the next step is our potatoes. I want to show you how we cut them up so that you get them right. They're just bite size. And I'll be putting spinach in here shortly and some other things, but here's our potatoes. I salted them a little bit and cut them up. You can see they're in about 1-inch chunks. And excuse me one moment here. I guess we're alright. I had some more kitten troubles there. She needs locked up. She's been climbing curtains to get my attention. That's her favorite thing. She knows I chase her when she climbs curtains, and then she's off and running, and then we're playing. So she's got me pretty well outsmarted. Now, we're going to be simmering those for a while, cooking them down somewhat. I am going to put in our lentils. So here they go. That's about 3/4 of a cup. I didn't put the whole lentils in. Now, lentils are high in fiber and potassium, and they are complex in carbs, and they're suitable for diabetics. They have the same protein as meat when they're combined with a whole grain. So we usually use rice or quinoa. I've shown you how I make it before. Most people know how to make rice. I use basmati rice. I have a recipe, and there are recipes of cooking Persian rice. And then potassium. Now it's interesting that the potassium that's in lentils is shown to lower blood pressure. So we've tried on this channel to give you things that are nutritious and healthy for you. And that's something else. It's going to take a while for these to bubble and siphon. So I'm going to be turning that off and turn the camera off and let it simmer for a while, and then I'll bring you back as it develops. The other thing that I'm going to put in here, which is, if you watch this channel often, one of my very, very favorites, is coconut milk. And there's a variety of types. This is gluten-free. It's a vegan or vegano, and it's non-GMO, so it ought to be pretty healthy for you. So we'll just pour in a whole can of that, and that just about takes care of our liquids. So the next thing, we just let heat do its job and flavor this up for us, and then we'll try it out a little bit later. I will bring you in toward the end as it develops some, but you can see what's going on here. We're just kind of mixing it all up. We got some pretty interesting colors there, and I'm going to put in a little bit of zest of a lime here. I know they use a lot of limes over there. A lot of folks use limes and lemons in cooking. I think citrus is good for us, so let's zest this up, and we'll squeeze a little bit of that in there too, and see if that gives us a little extra taste. I think the thing that we want to keep in mind is about curry. Curry is really, it's a variety of dishes. They originated in India. A lot of people, of course, over in Asia, since in Europe and the big continent over there, a lot of the Asian countries have gone into curries. We're going to do some Thai curry later. I've shown you the Thai curry paste that I used, but we've got a good Thai chicken that we use that I think is just great. That's something, if you're a meat eater, why it's good, and we give a little Thai flavor. I use with it my basil leaves, some Thai basil leaves, and that really kicks it up and gives it that extra Thai flavor that they use. Thai's food's good. And a lot of Asian foods. I do a lot of Asian cooking, Chinese cooking. Over the time, as we develop this channel, you'll see some of those my favorite dishes. Now that's a lot of zest there. I'll probably brush that out later maybe, but there's plenty of zest. And then I'm going to squeeze this lime in and hope we don't get too many seeds in there. I guess it'll be like the pods from the cumin, but I may have to juice one of these up a little bit later, and that's what I think I'm going to do. So I will put that on the juicer and pour some more juice. It's not squeezing very well. So it's about time to step away for a few minutes, let the flavors develop, let the vegetables soften so that they're a little bit more tolerable, and we're going to have an enjoyable meal later. I'll see you shortly. Okay? Bye-bye. Okay, it's been bubbling a little bit. It's kind of warmed up. You can see, if you can see down in here, it is simmering. It's not nearly done yet. It's got to cook down quite a bit. You won't be here to see all that part. We'll bring you in later, but I needed to put in the tomatoes. I told you it needed tomatoes in it. These are fire roasted. If you can see the black on that, that's from fire roasting, and that gives it, in my opinion, an extra earthy taste, and I think it gives you a little bite of a real tomato in there too. I could have used tomato sauce, but I think putting the tomatoes in, and remember we used the tomato paste, and one of the other ingredients that's important to put in here are the black-eyed peas. Now those again, they're going to give us some good protein, and we'll let them simmer for a while, add their flavor to the dish. And one of the other things that I think really adds to it is spinach. Now this is going to wilt and boil down pretty quick. There's 2 or 3 handfuls. Is that about enough? And that is going to boil down into nothing, but it's going to give it some extra fiber and taste. I keep mentioning fiber, and one of the things that I remember when I was involved in nutritional pursuit, let's say, one of the doctors said that one of the biggest problems with most people is they don't get enough fiber, and I certainly believe that. So I really maybe go overboard a little bit, but I continue to try and add fiber to my diet every day, and it seems to serve me well, because at my age they say I'm still pretty healthy. They's the doctors I go to when I'm forced to by my insurance company. But anyway, I'm a healthy guy, and that's because I like to eat healthy. So I'm going to let this simmer for a bit, and I'll be back a little bit later, and we'll have a plating or a bowling, whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to taste it and wish you could too. I sure appreciate your being here today. I think that if you'd subscribe, that would be great, so that you could see what's coming up. I told you we're going to make a Thai chicken curry one of these days soon. I've got a special macaroni and cheese recipe I'd like for you to see, if you will, and I've told you that I make a hot pepper sauce that I use quite often. I didn't put any serranos in here because I use cayenne, and a few other ingredients are hot. So that's going to be warm enough. My granddaughters, one of them didn't like it too hot, and I like to favor my grandchildren. So again, subscribe, hit the bell, like it, share it if you will. Thanks for coming. I'll see you at the dinner table. Bye-bye. It's all ready. I'm ready. I'm going to enjoy it. Wish you could be here to enjoy it with me. This is the dish we made today. That's the vegetable curry with the Indian seasonings. These are Thai basil leaves that I like to add with some dishes. This is some of the Persian rice I had left over from the other day. I'll put a link about it down in the video so you can see it. And this is one of the recent dishes we made. This is the dish, that carrot dish they call a dessert. I eat it as a side. It's nice and sweet, but I'm going to put the video link in there for you to make that. That is a carrot dish that's excellent, and of course, as usual, I'm going to have my coffee. So I'm going to taste it and see how we did. It thickened just right. I want to tell you that I added the red peppers toward the end in about the last 10 minutes. I don't like to get them too soft. I like for them to keep their sweetness and flavor. That is good. That is delicious. I've tasted it before, and as I say, I wish you could. There's some of the red pepper. Don't have a lot of vegetables in there, but we've got some. I'm looking for the spinach. I must not have dug down. I guess it did get some. I didn't dig down deep enough. Got a lot of spinach, but it's in there. Carrots are just tender enough. Potatoes are bite-sized, and they're cooked just right. So we made a good dish. Now, you can use it over rice or with rice. Sometimes I just like to put it on there and use the gravy to kind of flavor up the rice. Sometimes I put the rice in the bowl and then put the dish over. And of course, as I said, this is supposed to be dessert, but I like it as a side. It's tasty. So, I was glad to have you with me today. I do hope you'll come back. Hope you'll share this with some other people and like it. And subscribe so that you can see some of the next things that we have coming, because I've got a lot of dishes out there. Some are old family recipes, some that I find I go out and eat at restaurants and try it out, and then I make my own adaptations, such as I did here. We've got some Thai and Indian and some American in our black peas. So I think you'll enjoy it, and if you'll try it, tell somebody about it. Come back next time so that you'll see what surprise we have in store for you then. Thanks for coming. Goodbye for now.